The morning is cold, December cold, the kind that bites your knuckles and makes your breath hang in the air like a small ghost before it vanishes. It is Thursday, December 6th, 1917. Morning comes to Halifax Harbour. Another ordinary day at the edge of the Atlantic. A longshoreman buttons his coat and walks toward the docks, his boots crunching against the frozen gravel. In the Richmond district, a woman pours tea. Morning light crawls slowly across the kitchen table. A boy walks to school along Campbell Road. He drags a stick along a fence. Each wooden picket clicks like a tiny drum. Somewhere, a dog barks. Somewhere, a door closes. The harbour itself is alive with movement. Tugboats churn through the dark water. Transport ships sit heavy with cargo. Warships rest at anchor. Their grey hulls catch the pale morning sun. Halifax becomes one of the Empire's busiest ports. Everything passes through this harbour. Soldiers, supplies, ammunition, ships from all over the world crowd into the Narrows, a narrow corridor of water connecting harbour and sea. Every morning looks like this. War moves quietly through this harbour every day. Controlled chaos. Vessels easing past one another in water barely wide enough for two. No one standing on the waterfront that morning has any reason to believe that in less than 1 hour, nearly everything they can see will be gone. Two ships are moving through the Narrows. One is the SS Mont-Blanc, a Norwegian vessel chartered for Belgian relief work. She is heading outbound toward the open Atlantic. The other is the SS Mont-Blanc, a French cargo ship entering the harbour. She is arriving. She is unremarkable to look at. Rusted hull, low in the water. Nothing about her appearance suggests anything unusual. But the Mont Blanc is not an ordinary vessel. Deep below her decks, packed into every available hold, is one of the most volatile combinations of explosives ever loaded onto a single ship. Barrels of benzol are stacked on her upper deck. Below are cases of picric acid, TNT, gun cotton, thousands of tons of it. She is, in essence, a floating bomb, but she carries no red flag, no warning signal. Wartime secrecy forbids it. The crew knows what they are carrying. The harbour officials know, but the city does not. Across the harbour, the Mont Blanc drifts closer to the city. Flames now climb the forward deck. The fire is no longer small. The two ships approach each other in the narrow channel. What happens next unfolds through a series of confused signals, miscommunications, and fatal hesitations. The IMO is moving too fast. The Mont Blanc tries to adjust. Whistles blow. Commands are shouted across the water. But the geometry of the channel is unforgiving, and at 8:45 inches the morning, the bow of the IMO strikes the hull of the Mont Blanc on her starboard side. The impact itself is not catastrophic. It is a low-speed collision, the kind that happens in busy ports. But the force is enough to rupture barrels of benzol stored on the Mont Blanc's deck. The volatile liquid spills. Sparks fly from the grinding metal, and within moments, a fire begins. At first, it is small, a ribbon of flame licking across the forward deck. Then it grows. Black smoke begins to pour upward from the Mont Blanc in a thick, twisting column. From the waterfront, people stop and stare. Workers put down their tools. Shopkeepers step outside. Children press their faces against schoolroom windows. The burning ship drifts slowly toward Pier 6 inches, the Richmond district, pushed by the current, trailing fire across the water like a wounded animal. The crew of the Mont Blanc does not fight the fire. They already know what is below their feet. They know that no amount of water will stop what is coming. Within minutes of the collision, the captain gives the order to abandon ship. The men scramble into lifeboats and row desperately toward the Dartmouth shore, shouting warnings as they go. But their voices do not carry far enough, and the language they shout in is French. Almost no one on the Halifax side understands them. On the waterfront, the mood is curiosity, not fear. Crowds are forming. A fire on a ship is a spectacle, not a threat. People lean against railings. Some walk closer to get a better look. A few men grab buckets and head toward the pier. Firefighters respond. The fire engine from the Patricia station races toward the waterfront, its crew unaware of what burns beneath the deck of that ship. On the harbour, a brave crew from the tugboat Stella Maris moves toward the Mont Blanc, attempting to attach a tow line and pull the burning vessel away from the docks. They do not know what they are approaching. The fire burns hotter. The column of smoke turns white, then violet, then a strange greenish hue. The flames reach higher. Somewhere inside the hold, the temperature is rising toward a threshold that no one on shore can see. At 9:35 in the morning, the Mont Blanc detonates. For a fraction of a second, the harbour becomes brighter than daylight. There is no way to adequately describe what happens next, but we will try. A flash of light erupts from the harbour, not like fire, like the sun falling to earth. A white-hot column of flame tears upward from the surface of the water and reaches over a mile into the sky. The blast wave moves outward at more than 1,000 meters per second. It is a wall of invisible force, and it hits the city of Halifax like the hand of something ancient and incomprehensible. The Mont Blanc ceases to exist. She does not sink. She does not break apart. She vaporizes. Pieces of her hull, some weighing over 1,000 pounds, are hurled miles in every direction. Part of her anchor shank, a half-ton piece of forged iron, lands more than 2 miles away. The barrel of one of her deck guns is found embedded in the ground 3 miles from the harbour. The water beneath the ship is pushed outward so violently that the harbour floor is momentarily exposed. Then it rushes back in a tsunami that crashes over the Dartmouth shore and sweeps into the streets of Halifax's waterfront, dragging wreckage and bodies with it. The Richmond district, the neighbourhood closest to the blast, is annihilated. Not damaged, annihilated. Entire blocks of homes, schools, churches, and factories are flattened in a single second. Buildings do not crumble, they disintegrate. Wooden houses are reduced to clouds of splinters. Stone buildings collapse inward. The school on Campbell Road, where moments ago children sat at their desks, is destroyed. The firefighters from the Patricia station, who were racing toward the docks, are killed instantly. The crew of the Stella Maris, who tried to tow the burning ship, are gone. The people who stood along the waterfront, watching the fire with casual interest, are gone. Across the city, windows explode inward. Nearly every pane of glass in Halifax shatters at once. It is not a small detail. Thousands of people who were standing at their windows, watching the fire in the harbour, are blinded or mutilated by flying glass. The shockwave keeps moving. Beyond the city, beyond the harbour, it rattles windows 60 miles away. It is felt in Cape Breton. It is heard on Prince Edward Island. The blast is so powerful that it creates a pressure wave in the atmosphere that is recorded on instruments hundreds of miles from the harbour. And then, silence. For several seconds, the city does not understand what has happened. People lie where the shockwave threw them. A horse runs riderless through the street. A clock falls from a wall and shatters on the pavement. Then the screaming begins. From every direction, from under collapsed houses, from burning buildings, from the waterfront where the harbour itself seems to be on fire. Not real silence, but the silence that follows when every familiar sound has been erased. No church bells, no ship horns, no children, just the low groan of settling wreckage and the slow crackle of spreading fire. The destruction is beyond anything the survivors can process. The Richmond district is gone. Where a neighbourhood once stood, there is now a flattened wasteland of shattered wood, twisted metal, and broken stone. Fires have ignited across the wreckage. Gas mains are ruptured. Stoves have been thrown from kitchens into piles of kindling that were once homes. The fires begin to spread. People stumble through the streets in shock. Some are bleeding, some are barefoot, some are carrying children who are no longer alive. A man walks through the ruins calling a name over and over. A woman sits on a pile of debris that was her home, staring at nothing. Others begin to dig, tearing at the wreckage with their bare hands, pulling out survivors when they can. The screams of people trapped beneath collapsed buildings fill the air like a sound from some lower world. The hospitals are overwhelmed, many of them are damaged. Camp Hill Hospital, one of the largest in the city, is flooded with casualties within the first hour. Doctors operate by lamplight. Supplies run out. Beds run out. People lie on floors, on stretchers, on the frozen ground outside. The injuries are staggering. Burns, crush wounds, lacerations from flying glass, blindness. Many will never see again. Hundreds lose their sight in a single second, and then the sky changes. By the afternoon, the temperature begins to drop. Clouds roll in from the northwest, heavy and dark. By evening, the snow begins. Not a light dusting, a blizzard. A full North Atlantic winter storm descends on the shattered city, burying the wreckage under a white blanket that hides the dead and makes rescue nearly impossible. The wind howls through the skeletons of buildings that no longer have walls. Survivors who escaped the blast now face exposure. People trapped beneath rubble, still alive, feel the cold creeping in. Rescue workers who have been digging for hours are forced to stop and seek shelter. Fires still burn in some areas, melting the snow as it falls, creating rivers of black water that run through the ruins. That night is the longest night Halifax has ever known. But in the darkness, something begins to move toward Halifax, something that will define this city as much as the disaster itself. Help begins to arrive. From Truro, from Moncton, from towns across Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Trains are loaded with doctors, nurses, blankets, food, and medical supplies, and sent toward Halifax through the storm. Telegraph lines are down, but the messages get through. The word spreads. Halifax has been destroyed, and people respond. From Boston, Massachusetts, a relief train is organized within hours of the explosion. Through the storm, the train pushes north, through miles of snow. It arrives carrying surgeons, nurses, and supplies. This act of generosity will forge a bond between Halifax and Boston that endures to this day. Every December, Nova Scotia sends a giant Christmas tree to the city of Boston. It has done so for over a century. A tree for a train, a gift for a gift. Memory kept alive through a simple annual act of gratitude. In the days that follow, the scope of the disaster becomes clear. Nearly 2,000 people are dead, over 9,000 are injured, more than 6,000 are left homeless. 25,000 people, roughly half the population of Halifax, no longer have adequate shelter. The Richmond district has been completely erased from the map. The blast has leveled roughly 325 acres of the city. For decades, it will remain the largest man-made explosion in history. It will hold that record until the atomic age. But Halifax does not disappear. It does not surrender to the rubble. In the weeks and months that follow, the city begins to rebuild. Temporary shelters go up. Supply lines are established. Crews work through the winter to clear the wreckage. Architects begin planning a new Richmond district. The people who survived do what people have always done after the unthinkable. They bury their dead, they mourn, they hold one another, and then they start again. There is a clock in the Halifax Memorial Library that is stopped at 9:04, a permanent reminder of the exact moment the world changed for this city. It does not tick, it does not move. It simply holds that moment in place, the way the city holds its memory, not with bitterness, not with spectacle, but with a kind of quiet, unbreakable resolve. Halifax was not destroyed by war. It was destroyed by the machinery of war, by a ship loaded with death sailing into a harbor full of life. The people who died that morning were not soldiers. They were longshoremen and teachers and children walking to school. They were people standing at windows, watching a fire they did not understand, unaware that they were standing in the last seconds of the world as they knew it. The harbor is still there. Ships still pass through the narrows. The water still catches the pale morning sun, just as it did on December 6th, 1917. But beneath the surface, in the silt and the stone, the memory remains. The harbor remembers. And every year, when the snow falls over Halifax in December, the city remembers, not just what was lost, but what survived. But the city never forgets the morning the harbor became the center of the world, the morning the world shattered in a single second.